The morning light filtered through the lace curtains of Evelyn Harper's New England home, painting fragile patterns across the oak dining table where she sat, her hands cradling a mug of chamomile tea. At 62, Evelyn was a portrait of quiet resilience, her silver hair swept into a loose bun, her eyes tracing the lines of a life etched with joy and loss. Across from her, her son Nathan, 40, sat hunched over his phone, his broad shoulders a barrier to the world. The silence between them was not empty but heavy, thick with the weight of unspoken words, unhealed wounds, and a love that lingered like a half-forgotten song. This was no mere moment of disconnection, it was the ache of a bond stretched thin by time. A mother and son tethered by history, yet drifting in their own orbits. Evelyn's heart pulsed with a longing that felt both sacred and unbearable. She saw Nathan not as the man before her, distracted by the glow of his screen, but as the boy who once filled this room with laughter, his small hands sticky with glue as they built model trains together. Those days were a tapestry of warmth, his giggles, her patience, their shared dreams weaving a closeness that felt eternal. Now Nathan's presence, prompted by her recent surgery, carried the weight of obligation rather than affection. His polite smiles and brief replies were like echoes of a door closing, each one a reminder of the distance that had grown between them. Yet Evelyn refused to surrender to despair. She was a woman who had weathered the loss of her husband, the fading of her youth, and still found light in the act of creation. She believed their bond, though frayed, was not broken, only waiting to be rekindled. As she sipped her tea, Evelyn's gaze lingered on Nathan, searching for a flicker of the boy she knew. "Remember the trains, Nate?" she asked, her voice a soft bridge across the chasm. Nathan glanced up, his hazel eyes catching the light, a momentary spark of something, nostalgia perhaps, or unease. "Yeah, Mom. Good times," he said, his words clipped, his attention sliding back to his phone. The dismissal stung, a sharp pang in Evelyn's chest, but it also ignited her resolve. She saw in his guarded posture not rejection, but a man wrestling with his own burdens, work, guilt, the weight of being a son who felt he'd fallen short. This was the heart of their story, a truth that would resonate with every viewer who'd ever felt the slow drift of a loved one's heart. For an audience of 40 to 68-year-olds, this moment was universal, the quiet grief of watching a child grow into a stranger, the yearning to reclaim a connection that time had eroded. Evelyn's pain was their pain, her hope their hope. She understood that rebuilding their bond required more than words. It demanded action, a shared journey to rediscover what they'd lost. Her plan was both simple and profound: to restore the model train stored in the attic, not as a nostalgic retreat, but as a living act of love. The trains were more than a hobby. They were a symbol of their past joy, a canvas for new memories. She imagined their hands working side by side, Nathan's steady fingers rediscovering the delight of creation, her own heart swelling with the possibility of closeness. This was not about forcing intimacy, but about offering Nathan a path back to her, a path paved with patience and purpose. The emotional core of this moment was a delicate dance between vulnerability and strength. Evelyn's courage lay not in ignoring the silence, but in facing it, in believing that love could endure even the deepest rifts. For viewers, this was a call to their own resilience, a reminder that the ties that bind us, though strained, are never truly severed. The script wove in a fresh layer of depth, Evelyn's quiet ritual of tending to a small garden outside, where she whispered her hopes for Nathan into the soil, as if the earth itself could carry her love to him. This act, private and sacred, grounded her resolve, offering viewers a tangible way to process their own unspoken dreams. As the scene closed, Evelyn rose from the table, her eyes bright with determination. She would climb to the attic, dust off the trains, and begin. Nathan's fleeting glance followed her, a hint of curiosity in his expression, a crack in the wall between them. For the audience, this was the spark that would keep them watching, a promise that from silence could come song, from distance could come dance. Evelyn's story was theirs, and her journey was just beginning, inviting them to stay, to feel, to hope. The attic of Evelyn Harper's New England home was a cathedral of memory, its slant ceiling draped in cobwebs, its air thick with the scent of aged wood and forgotten dreams. At 62, Evelyn stood at the threshold, her silver hair catching the light from a single bulb, her heart alight with a fragile but fierce hope. Before her lay boxes of model trains, locomotives, tracks, and tiny stations that had once been the heartbeat of her bond with her son, Nathan. Now 40, Nathan stood beside her, his flannel shirt a stark contrast to the tailored suits of his Boston life, his hazel eyes wary but curious. This was no mere attic. It was a sacred space where the past could be touched, where the threads of their strained relationship might be rewoven. For Evelyn, this moment was not just about rediscovery, it was about resurrection, a chance to unearth the joy that had once defined them, and to offer it anew to a man who seemed to have forgotten how to receive it. Evelyn's hands trembled slightly as she opened the first box, revealing a tarnished locomotive, its paint chipped, but its form enduring. She saw not an object, but a portal to summer evenings when Nathan's laughter had echoed through this house, when their fingers had worked in tandem, building worlds from metal and imagination. That boy was still within the man beside her, she believed, buried beneath layers of work, guilt, and the weight of years spent apart. Nathan's presence here, prompted by her recent surgery, had been marked by duty, his words clipped, his attention tethered to his phone. But now, in this attic, Evelyn sensed an opening, a chance to reach him not through demands, but through the quiet power of shared creation. For their audience, men and women aged 45-68, this scene would strike a chord. The longing to reconnect with a loved one, to recapture a spark that time had dimmed, to believe that love could still surprise. She handed Nathan the locomotive, her voice soft but steady. "You painted this one purple, remember? Said it was the fastest train in the world." Nathan's lips twitched, a ghost of a smile breaking through his guarded exterior. "I was a weird kid," he murmured, turning the train over in his hands. The gesture was small, but to Evelyn it was seismic, a crack in the wall that had grown between them. She seized the moment, unveiling her plan to restore the trains not as a relic of the past, but as a living project, a bridge between who they were and who they could become. She'd added a modern twist, a digital tablet loaded with a design app, its screen glowing with possibilities. "We can sketch new layouts, Nate," she said, her eyes bright. "Make something new, together." Nathan hesitated, his fingers lingering on the tablet. Evelyn saw the flicker of doubt in his eyes, doubt not just in the project, but in himself, and whether he could still be the son she remembered. This was the emotional heart of their rediscovery, not the act of building, but the courage to believe in each other again. For the audience, this resonated deeply. Many had felt the ache of seeing a child grow distant, of wondering if the past could ever be reclaimed. Evelyn's faith was their inspiration, a reminder that love was not a static thing, but a force that could evolve, adapt, and endure. As they sorted through the boxes, the attic came alive with the clink of metal and the soft hum of memory. Evelyn shared stories, how Nathan had once insisted on a tunnel that collapsed, how they'd laughed until tears streamed down their faces. Nathan's chuckle was tentative at first, then warmer, as he added, "I thought I was Frank Lloyd Wright or something." The laughter was a melody, a thread pulling them closer. Evelyn proposed a new layout inspired by their long-ago trip to the Grand Canyon, a place where they'd stood in awe as a family, the vastness of the world mirroring the boundlessness of their love. Nathan's eyes lit up, and he grabbed the tablet, sketching with a focus that reminded Evelyn of the boy he'd been. This was no mere hobby. It was a reclamation of joy, a defiance of the silence that had threatened to define them. The script wove in a fresh perspective, Evelyn's quiet ritual of lighting a candle each night, whispering a wish for Nathan's happiness. This act, unseen by him, was her way of holding space for their bond, a private vow to never give up. For viewers, it offered a tangible way to process their own hopes, a reminder that love could be nurtured even in solitude. Yet the tension remained. Nathan's phone buzzed with work, pulling him away, and Evelyn felt the familiar sting of being sidelined. But she chose patience, knowing that rediscovery was not a single moment but a journey, one that required both to step toward each other. As they worked, the attic glowed with possibility, the trains a testament to what could be rebuilt. Nathan's hand brushed Evelyn's as they aligned a track, a fleeting touch that carried the weight of years. For the audience, this was a beacon of hope, that even in the shadow of distance, a spark could ignite, a bond could be rediscovered. Evelyn's story was theirs, a call to dust off their own memories, to reach out, to create. The attic was not just a place, it was a promise, and their journey was far from over. The attic of Evelyn Harper's New England home had become a fragile sanctuary, its air heavy with the scent of dust and the quiet hum of possibility. At 6'2", Evelyn stood amid a sprawl of model train tracks and locomotives, her silver hair glowing under the attic's single bulb, her heart a tapestry of hope and trepidation. Beside her, Nathan, 40, worked with focused precision, his flannel sleeves rolled up, his hazel eyes flickering with something unspoken. The trains they were restoring were more than a project. They were a year reflecting the delicate state of their mother-son bond, a connection strained by years of distance and unvoiced fears. Yet beneath the clink of metal and the soft rhythm of their collaboration, shadows lingered, doubts that gnawed at Evelyn's resolve and clouded Nathan's gaze. This was not just a moment of hesitation, but a profound reckoning, a confrontation with the fear that their efforts might not be enough to heal the rift between them. Evelyn's fingers traced the curve of a tiny station, its paint faded, but its form a testament to the summers when Nathan's laughter had filled this house. She saw him then, a boy with boundless dreams, and she saw him now, a man carrying burdens she could only guess at, work that consumed him, guilt for the calls he hadn't returned, a life that seemed to have little room for her. The attic had brought them closer, their shared tasks sparking moments of warmth, but doubt was a persistent shadow. Did Nathan see this as a chore, a duty to his recovering mother? Was she pushing too hard, clinging to a past he'd outgrown? These questions pressed against her chest, heavy as the oak beams above. Yet Evelyn was no stranger to doubt. She had faced it when her husband died, when her youth slipped away, and each time she had found a way to rise. She believed their bond, though scarred, was worth fighting for, not to reclaim what was, but to forge something new. Nathan, too, was wrestling with his own shadows. As he fitted a track into place, his movements were steady, but his mind churned. He loved his mother, but her unwavering warmth felt like a mirror, reflecting his failures, his absence, his distraction, the way he'd let their connection fray. The trains, once a source of joy, now felt like a test he wasn't sure he could pass. What if they failed? Not just at this project, but at being mother and son. The thought tightened his jaw, and when a locomotive derailed, its wheels spinning uselessly, he exhaled sharply. Maybe this isn't worth it, he'd add, his voice low, the words carrying a weight beyond the moment. Evelyn's heart clenched, recognizing the deeper fear in his tone. This was the emotional core of their story, the vulnerability of standing at the edge of hope, unsure if the leap was worth the risk. For their audience, Americans aged 45 to 68, many of whom had felt the sting of strained family ties, this moment was achingly familiar. Doubt was a universal language, spoken in the silences between parents and children. In the fear that love might not be enough, Evelyn's response was their beacon. She knelt beside Nathan, her eyes steady, her voice a lifeline. Nothing worth having comes easy, Nate. Not these trains, not us. But we don't give up, we keep trying. Her words were not a dismissal of his fear, but an embrace of it, a promise that doubt was not the end, but a step toward healing. For viewers, this resonated as a call to their own resilience, a reminder that relationships, like lives, were built through persistence, not perfection. The script wove in a fresh layer of depth. Evelyn's private ritual of keeping a worn notebook, where she wrote unsent letters to Nathan, pouring out her fears and dreams. In one, she confessed her worry that she'd failed him, that her love might feel like a burden. Reading it silently as Nathan worked, she found clarity, not in erasing her doubts, but in accepting them as part of her love. This act, inspired by your own reflections on journaling gratitude with Eleanor, offered viewers a tangible way to process their own uncertainties, a quiet space to hold both fear and hope. Another new element emerged, Evelyn's vision of turning their train project into a community display, a way to share their journey with neighbors. This aspiration, rooted in your mention of hosting gatherings after Caleb's visit, gave their work a broader purpose, transforming personal doubt into collective possibility. As they resumed their task, the attic seemed to soften, the shadows less oppressive. Nathan adjusted the derailed train, his fingers steadier, his glance toward Evelyn carrying a hint of trust. Evelyn met his gaze, her smile a quiet vow to keep going. For the audience, this was a moment of catharsis. Doubt was not a barrier, but a bridge, a chance to grow closer through honesty and effort. The trains, imperfect and incomplete, were a testament to their courage, a courage that invited viewers to face their own shadows, to reach out, to believe. Evelyn and Nathan's story was theirs, a journey through doubt toward a light that was still within reach. The attic of Evelyn Harper's New England home had transformed into a haven of creation, its slanted walls no longer confining but expansive, alive with the hum of possibility. At 62, Evelyn stood amid a miniature world of model trains, tracks winding through canyons, locomotives gleaming under LED lights, tiny figurines frozen in moments of imagined life. Her silver hair glowed softly in the attic's warm light, her eyes alight with a quiet triumph. Beside her, Nathan, 40, adjusted a sleek train car he'd designed, his flannel shirt dusted with sawdust, his hazel eyes reflecting a focus that felt like devotion. This was no mere project, it was a testament to their rediscovered bond, a shared purpose that had woven their frayed connection into something vibrant and new. The trains were not just relics of their past, but beacons of what they could build together, a legacy of love, resilience, and mutual respect that spoke to the deepest yearnings of their audience. Evelyn's heart swelled as she watched Nathan, seeing not just the man he'd become, but the boy he'd been, the one who'd dreamed of worlds beyond their small town. The attic had become their sanctuary, a place where the silence of their early days, marked by Nathan's distracted glances at his phone, Evelyn's unspoken fears, had given way to laughter, shared stories, and the steady rhythm of collaboration. The project had begun as her quiet act of hope, a way to bridge the chasm that years of distance had carved. Now it was something greater, a purpose that bound them not as mother and son in the traditional sense, but as equals, partners in a creation that mirrored their evolving love. For their audience, Americans aged 40 of 68, many of whom had felt the ache of fading family ties, this was a universal longing to find meaning in relationships, to transform duty into delight, to rediscover a loved one as a companion in life's unfolding story. The trains themselves told a story of their journey. A tiny figurine of a mother and son stood at a station, a nod to their past. A modern train car designed by Nathan on a digital app gleamed with the promise of their present. Evelyn had surprised him with LED lights, ordered online to illuminate their miniature canyons, a gesture that sparked a rare boyish grin from Nathan. These details were more than aesthetic. They were symbols of their shared vision, a blending of Evelyn's nostalgia and Nathan's innovation. The emotional core of this moment was connection, not as a fleeting spark, but as a steady flame, fueled by mutual respect. Nathan no longer saw Evelyn solely as his mother, the woman who needed his help after surgery. He saw her as a creator, a woman with dreams and strength. Evelyn, in turn, saw Nathan not as the distant son, but as a man with his own battles, work that consumed him, dreams of starting a business worthy of her admiration. This shift was a revelation for their audience, many of whom had navigated the complexities of adult children's lives, yearning to be seen as more than parents. The script wove in a fresh perspective, Evelyn's private ritual of sketching in a small notebook, not just train layouts, but moments of their time together, a curve of Nathan's smile, the way his hands moved with care. This act, inspired by your own painting with Caleb, was her way of preserving their purpose, a quiet vow to hold fast to this newfound closeness. Another new element emerged. Evelyn's dream of hosting a community showcase for their train layout, inviting neighbors to witness their creation. This vision, rooted in your mention of hosting gatherings after Caleb's visit, gave their work a broader resonance, transforming their personal triumph into a gift for others. For viewers, this tapped into the deep desire to leave a legacy, to share joy beyond the walls of home. As they prepared for the showcase, the attic buzzed with energy. Nathan spoke of his struggles, deadlines, doubts about his future, and Evelyn listened, not with advice but with presence, her silence a space for his truth. This equality was the heart of their shared purpose, a reminder for viewers that love thrives when we meet each other as we are. The script deepened this with a poignant moment. Evelyn gifted Nathan a restored locomotive, repainted in the bright purple he'd loved as a child. "You've always been my dreamer," she said, her voice thick with emotion. Nathan's embrace was wordless, a gesture that carried the weight of years, a promise to keep building together. For the audience, this was a catharsis, a vision of what purpose could achieve. Not perfection, but presence, not closure, but continuation. The showcase loomed as a celebration not just of their trains, but of their journey, from silence to song, from doubt to devotion. Evelyn and Nathan stood side by side, their creation ember of their renewed bond, a light that invited others to join. For viewers, this was a call to action, to find purpose in their own relationships, to create, to connect, to share. Evelyn's story was theirs, a testament to the power of purpose to heal and uplift, a journey that promised more wonders to come. The attic of Evelyn Harper's New England home glowed with a warmth that transcended its weathered beams, the air alive with the soft hum of a model train circling its tracks, its LED lights casting a constellation of hope across a miniature world. At 62, Evelyn stood at the heart of this creation, her silver hair a halo under the attic's gentle light, her eyes brimming with a quiet joy that felt like redemption. Beside her, Nathan, 40, adjusted a tiny station, his flannel shirt flecked with paint, his hazel eyes reflecting a peace that had been hard won. The trains, and locomotives, canyons, and figurines were no longer just a project. They were a testament to a bond reborn, a mother and son who had journeyed through silence, doubt, and rediscovery to arrive at a place of profound connection. This was not an ending, but a beginning, a promise of a journey beyond the tracks, one that would carry them forward and inspire their audience to embrace their own paths of renewal. Evelyn's heart was a mosaic of gratitude and awe as she watched Nathan, seeing in him both the boy who'd once dreamed of infinite horizons and the man who'd found his way back to her. The attic, once a repository of dust and memory, had become a crucible where their relationship had been reforged, not into the simplicity of childhood, but into something richer, an adult friendship grounded in mutual respect and shared dreams. The community showcase they'd hosted had been a triumph, with neighbors marveling at the train layout, their gasps and smiles a chorus of shared wonder. Nathan had been the heart of it, explaining their design with a passion that reminded Evelyn of his younger self, while she stood quietly proud, her presence a steady anchor. For their audience, Americans aged 45 to 68, many of whom had felt the slow drift of family ties, this was a universal dream, to not only reconnect with a loved one, but to build something enduring, a legacy that could ripple beyond the walls of home. The emotional core of this moment was transformation, a recognition that love, when nurtured, could evolve into something greater than its origins. The showcase had been more than a display. It was a celebration of their journey, from the heavy silences of Nathan's initial visit, prompted by Evelyn's surgery, to the laughter and vulnerability of their attic hours. The trains, with their tiny mother and son figurine and sleek modern cars, told their story, a past cherished, a present reclaimed, a future imagined. Evelyn had introduced a fresh ritual during these final days, inspired by your own moments of gratitude with Eleanor. Each evening, she placed a small stone in a glass jar, each one marking a moment of closeness with Nathan, a shared laugh, a quiet confession, a fleeting touch. This act, unseen by him, was her way of anchoring their progress, a tangible prayer for their continued journey. For viewers, it offered a way to hold fast to their own moments of connection, a reminder that even small victories could build a lasting foundation. Nathan's voice broke the attic's quiet, his words soft but weighty. "I didn't see this coming, Mom. I thought I was just here to help you heal. But it's us, isn't it? More than before." Evelyn's throat tightened, tears tracing her cheeks as she nodded. "It's who we're becoming, Nate, and we're not done yet." Her words were a vow, not just to him, but to their audience, who knew the ache of wondering if it was too late to mend a bond. The script deepened this with a new aspiration. Evelyn and Nathan's plan to take a cross-country train trip, inspired by their Grand Canyon layout, to see the real vistas together. This dream, rooted in your mention of Caleb's visit, sparking new adventures, was a literal and emotional journey, a commitment to keep moving forward. For viewers, it was a call to imagine their own next steps, to see relationships not as static, but as journeys with endless horizons. The attic's glow seemed to pulse as they stood together, the train's steady rhythm a heartbeat of their shared purpose. Evelyn saw in Nathan's eyes a flicker of the boy who'd believed in possibilities, now tempered by the strength of a man who'd chosen to stay. Nathan saw in Evelyn not just his mother, but a woman of courage, whose faith had guided them here. The script closed with a reflection for the audience. Their story was a testament that love could be rebuilt not by erasing the past, but by building on it, track by track, moment by moment. The jar of stones, the planned trip, the train circling under the lights, these were symbols of a truth that resonated deeply. It's never too late to create, to connect, to begin again. Evelyn and Nathan's journey was theirs, a light that invited viewers to pick up their own threads of love, to dream, to act, to travel the tracks of life with those they hold dear.